Hello folks, Peter Waterworth here. Today we're talking about sketching and adding some colour through watercolour wash. And today we're particularly talking about sketching shrubs and small bushes. So if you want to join in, and I encourage you to, can you get some paper? It doesn't matter, any quality paper, maybe the back of a Ryman notice or something like that, and a pen or a pencil. Even a ballpoint pen would be fine. Now, before we start, let me ask you a question. Did you enjoy art and drawing when you were in school? Well, I certainly did. It was a chance to relax and to be a little bit expressive. Well, I didn't do any art after school, and it's only just in the last few years that I've gone back to art, to sketching, and when we travel, for example, my wife Elaine takes the photos and I do the sketching. Just a short 20-minute sketch. So why don't you join in as we look at this particular video.
Let's try doing some sketching. First of all, just making marks. So you can see I'm going at a fairly regular rate here, trying to keep the distance between each of the marks fairly similar, but I'm doing them in patches. It doesn't really matter. Some of them heavy, some of them are a little bit lighter. So we're trying to build up kind of a shadow feeling here. By putting the extra heavy ones on, I'm changing the texture, and you can see the overall impression is given there. Now let's try something a little bit different. Something completely irregular, really scribbling. Can you do this? Try to make the marks go in all kinds of directions. Now for drawing straight lines, there are two ways to do straight lines. One is just freehand, the other is in bits where I stop and then I do the next bit. And I stop, then do the next bit. Now for doing around the outside of a shrub or a bush, it's the irregular line but it's continuous. Maybe stop it every now and again. Some lines inside the bush. Okay, you can see the way in which they are forming as we go. Okay, that's pretty good. Hope you did well. Now, of course, it's best to draw from life if we can possibly do that. But here's second best, and that is some pictures of shrubs and bushes that we've found in the village garden. Let's see how we go with them. Get your pen and paper ready. We start by looking at the overall shape and at the shading. So most shrubs are of a round shape, a globe shape, spherical shape. So they're not exactly spherical, so we do the line around the outside just as clearly as we can. You can see leaves. They stick out quite easily here, so we put a few leaves in. We're not going to draw every leaf, but we want to give the impression. The whole idea is that we are providing some kind of interpretation of what we see. We're not trying to draw it exactly as it is, because that's just far too difficult. In fact, we would take a photo if we want an accurate picture of what we're trying to draw, rather than sitting down and bothering about drawing. So now we put the shade in. You notice on the example of the shrub up in the top right-hand corner, there's a bit of shade down on one side. Well, that's exactly how a ball would be, shaded on one side, the light coming from one side. Here's the next one. Again, there are three bushes here. They're all ball-shaped, so we'll do the outline of the first one. And then the other two are tucked behind. Made a mistake here. Let's go down a little bit lower. And the third one as well. So they're fairly roughly sketched out with gaps, a dotted line. Now we're putting the shading on and adding a little bit of shadow. There's hardly any variation in these plants because they're not in the sun. Shadow is so important in sketching. We want to see where the sun is coming from, the light of the sun, where are the shaded parts, where is the shadow of the actual object itself. So some of these are little marks to show there are indentations or dark patches throughout the whole of the bush, and some are just shaded. Notice that the second and the third ones, we only have to hint at what is available there, what is being shown. We don't draw the whole thing with all of the detail. The thing that is the closest to us has the detail, and then there's less and less detail as we move back from the first object. So adding shade here to try to get more colour by adding a darker shade. Now here's the third one. This is the most difficult one and the last one that we'll do. So first of all we'll do the trunk. This is not a spalier, what do you call this? Standard. It's been particularly developed this way with a long stem, and then it's got the ball shape at the top. Now notice that you're looking at the texture of the leaves. Every drawing that we do, we try to represent the texture. They are long, thin stalks. They blow in the wind and they look beautiful. You can see how the different light at the top of the tree than at the bottom. There's a lot of dark shaded area down the bottom side of the tree, of the shrub. So we've done the outline there. As you see, there's a very dark patch there that we're trying to colour in, and then some little scribbly bits around. Remember the scribbly kind of pattern? So there are two kinds of strokes, remember? There's the shaded strokes, which are regular, and then there's the scribbly strokes, which show kind of like the shape. Now we're doing the shaded part, so we're doing it consistently, evenly, and this produces a different kind of effect. Now we want to do the trunk or the stem. Notice it's very dark up at the top, almost black. We're using a black pen, and so coming down the side you can see that there's a lighter part on the left-hand side of the trunk. And then as we get towards the bottom, it is not quite so heavy, but the shadow goes across the whole of the bottom of the trunk. Then we do the shadow coming out from the trunk itself, and then to the main foliage part. Now I'm not satisfied that there's enough clear definition of the outside, so I'm going to use a broken line and go around the outside. It's very important to be responsive to the drawing that you're trying to do, just to keep in mind the effect that you're trying to achieve, and then adapt your technique according to what you see. Here we have filling in the darker parts, just in continuing with the shading, and we gradually build this up. There we go, that's pretty good. I'm fairly happy with the way that's turned out.
Well, tell me, how did you get on? Did you produce something that was more or less satisfactory? Why don't you show it to me sometime that you see me around the village? And next time we'll do something more, and maybe something to do with trees, and see if we can get some skills in that area, if possible. Well, that's all for today, and thank you very much for participating. See you again next time. Bye.